Why is it that the ticking clock of life is so loud? Why is it that we are always running ourselves against the clock? And a lot of the times, it's not even our own clock. What is that about? Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to new folks who may have just found me. I'm Shelby J. Rodney, the Motherless Millennial. And really in this video, I just want to talk about running your own race and running your own race on your own damn time. But I'm going to talk about it from a parentless grieving girl's perspective. For the longest time, and really up until probably earlier this year, I compared myself against my parents' death clock. Basically living in this just constant state of anxiety and pressure to do enough meaningful and exciting and successful things by the time I reached the age where they died. That was my benchmark, i.e. their death clock. And I figured I couldn't be the only parentless person out here putting themselves up against this death clock. So I said, let's talk about it. And for my folks watching who maybe can't relate to losing parents or from sort of the grief aspect, you'll probably still find some parallels because there's likely a different clock of some kind that you're putting yourself up against unnecessarily. So either way, let's get into how putting myself up against my parents' death clock was taking a toll on me and what I had to start thinking about to just learn how to run my own race on my own time. I realized that putting myself up against this death clock meant that I was living in fear of running out of time instead of just living and enjoying the time that I had. It meant that every single thing was on a schedule. I never really just took a moment to smell the flowers or bask in the sunlight. It was do one thing, cross off the list, and keep it pushing. And because of that, I would just leave some blurry scene, in the back of my head instead of a beautiful, vivid memory because I didn't take time to relish in it. The clock was ticking. I was like, oh, only 20 more years left, only 25 more years left to get all this stuff done. Had to keep it pushing. I didn't want to live in fear. And when it felt like life put this death clock on me, I had to realize that, no, sis, you put that death clock on yourself. Nobody did that. So I had to take fear out of the equation. I had to remove it from being my motivator and replace that with just hope and the desire to live a meaningful life on my own time. And then I realized it just wasn't fair to who I am right now at this age and comparing that to who my parents were around the same time or around the same age. Sometimes I would think that maybe my mom and dad should have or could have been more or done more by the time they passed in their 40s and 50s. But then I had to think girl, your parents grew up in a completely different time than you. In the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, on a completely different timeline with completely different resources. Whatever they had done and accomplished by the time they were your age or by the time they passed was great. And it doesn't make it any less. It just makes it different. You can't compare yourself to that. And realize and recognize that they worked hard to give you a better quality of life, to give you a better perspective on life so that you could do better and you could do more. So if you're pushing to accomplish something by a certain time, don't do it because you're comparing yourself to what they were doing in their late 20s and what you're doing your late 20s now in 2023. Do it because you know that they wanted you to thrive long after they were gone. Don't do it because you're putting yourself against a timeline of when they passed, this death clock. And after a while, I just realized it was flat out unrealistic to put myself on their death clock. Because in no logical way does anyone know when their last day on earth is, usually. So to just give myself an automatic stop at my 40s or my early 50s was just self-inflicted torture, and I needed to stop. Just flat out did not make any sense, and that was no way to live. All right, that's all I have to say on that, y'all. So run your own race, throw them other folks' clock out the window, and do you when you want to do you. Okay? Well, Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. I'm believing y'all. Subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Be good.